Give me a mic check, 1 2 1 2.
1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Welcome to the Two Dad from Dad podcast, where we talk about fatherhood, what went well, what didn't, what we would go back and tell ourselves if we could, and what wisdom we would hope to share with fathers that are coming behind us. Today's guest is Mr. Fred. Fred, welcome.
Hey, what a pleasure it is to be here today.
Yeah. So Fred, some context about how we know each other. Several years after Whitney and I got married, we found you and Miss Cynthia in a young marrieds Sunday school class. Mm-hmm. Although we weren't supposed to call it a Sunday school class at the time. We knew what it was. It was a class on Sunday morning at church, right? And you know, Fred, that ultimately plugged us in with a lot of our lifelong friends that we made here in Tyler, you and Cynthia included.
Yeah.
And so we've known each other for, going on 13, 14 years now. Mm-hmm. But would you mind just, tell us about you, just kind of set the stage for us. Tell us about your wife, Miss Cynthia, and your kiddos, what phase of life you're in, grandkids, just kind of give us some context there.
Wow. When you're 70 years old, that's opening up Pandora's box a little bit. I am a 70-year-old man. I've been deeply involved in the church. It's part of my Christian faith, for many years, and it has been such a blessing to get to know people like you and Whitney and other young couples who are just starting out in life, as we tried to influence those young marrieds, and what a blessing that's been, and what deep relationships have come out of that. And it warms my heart to hear you say what you're saying about your lifelong friends, because that's really what we wanted the class to do, was to be a place for people to connect for a lifetime. Because it's working in church ministry is where I've met my closest friends and have continued to be close friends with them for, well over 40 years now.
Yeah.
So, I am retired. I was the president of a company I was originally one of the founders, but I sold to a European company, a German company, and remained after the acquisition. I stayed on as president for 25 years, up until I retired. My wife and I, Cynthia is my wife, and we met actually in the same church we attend now in 1977, and we got married.
Yeah.
Let's see, I think we started dating in Valentine's Day. I proposed on March 19th. We got married July 1st. So boom, boom, boom.
There you go.
Moved very quickly. And then not long after we were married, we kind of got involved in church ministry and intended to have a family, and we worked our hardest at that.
Yeah.
and we're not able to get pregnant. Just had some fertility issues there, and we decided to just throw our life into our ministry, and we just worked with teenagers and developed some very deep friendships. In fact, one of those 14-year-old girls that we were doing ministry with years ago is tonight coming to our house to spend the night with her son and his family and her husband, and that's been many years.
Yeah.
And so, but after a while, those kids we were working with went off to college and kind of moved on, and it was at that point I considered adoption. And Cynthia was already on the adoption train.
Yeah.
I was the one who wouldn't get on the train, but I think God stirred something in my heart and made me change my thinking about that. And we adopted our first daughter, and then a year and a half later we adopted our second daughter, and that was in 1990 and 1992. And we became strong advocates for adoption. We were very pro adoption,
Yeah.
and very pro life, and just really value that baby from conception, and have really been involved in ministries that advocate along that way. And so after that, it was just like most other families, except for the fact that when our second daughter was about a month old, my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer and stage 3, and we had to go through. I say we, she primarily, but it affects all of us.
Yeah.
But she went through 9 months of chemotherapy, or I guess it was just 6 months of chemotherapy, and then another multiple months of radiation after that. And she got quite ill as a result of all the treatment. But hey, that was 1992, and now it's 2026, and she's been cancer-free all that time.
Wow.
But has had some other health issues, primarily associated with her heart since then, but as a result of the chemo. But we persevere. You know, God is good.
Yeah. How old are your daughters now?
Our oldest daughter is 35. Yes, 35. And she'll be 36 in October. And then our younger daughter is 33. She'll be 34 in April.
Okay.
Yeah. And they each have 3 kids.
Grandkids, okay.
My older daughter has two 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old boy, 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
And then my younger daughter has 3 girls, 4, 3, and about 6 months.
What's your grandpa name?
Granddaddy.
Granddaddy.
I had a granddaddy.
Yeah.
I'm a granddaddy.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny how granddad names are, can be kind of familial.
Yeah. I think we like what we grew up with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So that's my life story. It was quite a bit, but I just want to get it all out there.
No, that's great. I have so much to talk to you about, Fred. So let's go back. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we cover with you today is, I know this about you, but being the president of a company for 25 years, you spent a lot of time traveling because, being purchased by a European company, I know that you spent a lot of time going over the pond over the years. But, you know, we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, is how do you balance the necessity of travel for work, the demanding nature of work to build something professionally, to provide for your family, with the fact that you're away from your family and you bring the work home, you bring the stress home. Sometimes you're faced with decisions to miss things because work's going on. And man, I just wanted your perspective on how did you view that? Did you have any tips, tricks, any things that you tried to do as a result of that? But could you talk about that a little?
Yeah, it's certainly painful to be gone as much as I was gone. And, working for an international company, I had 2 board meetings every year I had to go to. And one of them was always in December. It was always like in the first or second week of December. And it was always whenever the kids were doing a Christmas play at their school. So I don't think I ever saw their Christmas plays, Yeah. And I can think of a couple of soccer games where my daughter was in a really intense competition, and I was actually the assistant coach for the team, but sometimes I had to be gone. And I remember missing those were painful. And so without a doubt, it's just sometimes your career requires you to miss things.
Yeah.
But my view was always, you make when you're there, you be there. You be present, and you make the time count. I don't think my daughters really suffered from how much I was gone. I mean, I wasn't gone every week, or I was probably gone maybe a week, a month, or maybe a little more than a week, a month.
Yeah.
But my dad traveled a lot. He was a chemical engineer, and he worked for he was actually responsible for sales for a company that sold globally, and so he traveled all over the world. And I was like, growing up, I'm like, I don't ever want to travel.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a homebody
Yeah.
at heart. Did not want to travel, and I guess the Lord had different plans for me because He put me in a situation where I had to do exactly what my dad did, travel all over the world, but yeah, there are things that probably I missed because my dad traveled so much. But I say one thing: my wife has been extremely diligent in making sure that all the bases were covered when I was gone.
Yeah.
And that really helps when you have a wife who is really attentive to making sure the kids are having fun when daddy's gone and that they're not really missing anything.
Yeah. Was the travel ever a point of contention between you and Cynthia? Like,
no, I don't think so. I think she understood that was, part of the job, and it was a good job. I mean, she didn't have to work, and, so she was very grateful that I had a job that allowed for her to be at home with the kids.
Yeah.
And that's just came along with it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a guy, the folks listening, there's a gentleman, his name's Steve Ranella. He has a podcast, the Meat Eater podcast. It's he's an avid outdoorsman. He said something that really stuck with me. I don't travel as much in terms of nights away from home now, but there was a period in my career where I was gone, 40, 50, 60 nights a year for probably a 4-year stint. And Stephen Ranella said that if you don't want it to be a big deal when you leave, don't expect it to be a big deal when you come home. And I don't know why, but I really kind of struggled with that for a while. But, Whitney and I kind of talked about that. And during that period of my life, we really tried to focus on not making it a big deal when I would leave. Mm-hmm. And when I would come home, of course the kids were happy to see me, and that was that you can't do anything, you want that. It's very blessed to have that. But, for Whitney more than anything, it was kind of like, hey, it's not going to be a big thing when I leave, and I don't expect a big thing when I come back. I'm going to have to step away, and then I'm going to have to step right back in. And the thing that stuck with me was, just because I've been gone working for 2 or 3 days doesn't mean that when I get home, I have a couple of hours to decompress, Yeah. Like the decompression time is the 3 or 4 hours or the 12-hour flight to get back home. And then when you walk in the door, it's time to be dad.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I remember I made one trip to China. I was going to be gone for 2 weeks, and Cynthia, they took me to the airport because I just didn't want to leave a car there for 2 weeks at Tyler Poundsfield Airport. Yeah. And we did not anticipate how our daughters were going to react. They were very, very upset and very crying, and that really made it hard to leave when that happened.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, they had, they're 4, 5, 6 years old, so they're little minds. They had created a jail to put me in to confine me, so that I wouldn't leave again.
Yeah.
So I could tell they really missed me on that trip. But 2 weeks is a lot longer than 4 or 5 days, which is more typical.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your dad was a chemical engineer. Let's talk about your dad for a minute.
Sure.
So,
since we're meeting in the house that he built,
I was just about to say, for those that are watching, we are actually in a mobile pop-up recording studio. And really fun fact, but we are in a detached garage building that has an office space in it. And this home site that we're on is actually the house that your dad built,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Back in 1978,
Yeah.
and this is an extension he built later than that. He built it kind of so he'd have an office
Yeah.
to meet in, and now our friend office is here.
That's right. Yeah. So, when you reflect back on your dad, one of the things that I've as we kind of reflect back on our dads, one of the things I'm most curious about, Fred, is like what was your dad really good at? Like what's maybe a different way to say that, Fred, is like, what is something that your dad did that you wanted to make sure to carry on, or you wanted to be equally as good at? Does anything stand out to you?
Well, I tell you what, I was blessed with loving parents. My dad, he taught me how to fish, taught me how to hunt. Enjoyed having me even when he put a 22 rifle in my hands when I probably should not have had a 22 rifle
Yeah.
in my hands. I'd be walking behind him and I'm thinking, I'm not sure I'd want a 11-year-old kid with a 22 rifle walking behind me,
Yeah.
But but he made a real effort to give me a great childhood, and now there were times sometimes I felt like I was missing out on what other kids were doing, but it really wasn't so much because he traveled as much as it's because our family, not my family, I mean my extended family, my cousins, and I have an uncle who's 3 years older than me, and we were just so incredibly tight.
Yeah.
And all lived here in Tyler, and just every weekend did stuff together, and so my world kind of consisted of my family, and so I didn't really have any friendships at school.
Yeah.
And I remember one time some kids at school were talking about baseball practice, and I'm kind of like, baseball practice? What's that about?
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah.
I like to play baseball, and but I think we were so wrapped up with our family that they didn't really expose me to other things that were going on, in the community that a boy my age might have been involved in.
Yeah.
So,
Well, same question, but kind of the inverse is when you have reflected back on your upbringing, maybe not specifically your dad or what did you was there anything that you wanted to do differently? Look, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that your parents did anything wrong, but like, was there, can you, that's a tough question.
I tell you what, well, I tell you what, both of my parents were just such great parents, and they really, they loved us and they showed that love we're always doing fun things. My parents were the fun parents,
Yeah.
whether it's at church or, wherever, with family, whatever, they were, playing ping pong or bumper pool. We had all these games that, people would come over our house and play. And so it was a fun house.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And they certainly introduced me to the Lord at an early age.
Yeah.
I really can't think of anything significant that I would do differently. And I talked about my extended family, how, the downside of that, but I tell you what, there's a big upside.
Yeah.
Because to this day, I just love my cousins, and we get together when we can and talk, even though they live in Dallas and beyond.
Yeah. All right. This is a new question to the podcast, but you have any weird family traditions?
Ooh, weird family. I would just say, we're a weird family.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife in particular says I'm weird all the time.
Yeah.
And my daughters think I'm weird. So, but I think they're weird.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think we really have any. I think we do pretty much the, traditional things that people do at holidays. And,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I don't think we're
Yeah.
that different from
Okay.
most.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, hey, let's talk about breast cancer a little bit.
yeah.
1992 is when Miss Cynthia was diagnosed with breast cancer. I haven't talked about this much on the podcast, but what's really crazy about that, Fred, is 1993 or 1994 was when my mom received her first breast cancer diagnosis, and ended up having a double radical mastectomy and lots of chemotherapy and radiation. Maybe radiation. I don't know if radiation was a thing back then, but
It was. Yeah.
it was. Yeah. And for her, immediately followed by that was some heart disease, some genetic heart disease that she struggled with for years. But my mom lived for 19 or 20 years after that. I guess it was 20 years after that in remission. And then my mom passed away in 2013 when the breast cancer had come back and gone undetected and had spread to, her lungs and pancreas and all of the internal organs. And at that point, it was really just about buying time more than anything. And then ultimately, she passed away on April 3rd of 2013. And so I really just kind of want to open up the conversation for what was it like having a 2-month-old and Miss Cynthia getting diagnosed with, breast cancer. And could you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, man, that was a hard time in life. Probably, I guess, the hardest time I've ever experienced. And I remember taking our older daughter out on just strolling through the neighborhood, in the midst of all that, and just talking to God and telling God, if Cynthia doesn't live, I don't want to live either. And then I just remember there's not many times I can say I felt like I heard God talking to me so directly, but I just kind of heard his voice in my mind say, my relationship is with you and my deal is with you. And so whatever happens with Cynthia, that's between me and her, but you and I have our own thing, And I realized as much as the two shall become one, and as much as I felt that oneness with Cynthia, that, God was telling me, I don't have the luxury of checking out when she checks out. And so, and fortunately, he didn't take her, And so, but it did impress upon me just the importance of, just maintaining that commitment to God and no matter what storm you face, he's got you, it's between me and him.
Yeah.
And another time, I think 2 times I really felt like I heard God talking to me, and another time was not long after that. Maybe it was maybe a year later. And Cynthia was still going through some health things, and I remember looking at a woman in the grocery store, just typical woman. I mean, but I don't know why I was looking at her. But I remember thinking this thought in my mind. I thought, how come Cynthia can't, be doing what that woman's doing, today, shopping? And because at that time, Cynthia was just not doing well physically and couldn't really get out. And then I heard God's voice again say, you don't know what other issues that woman may be dealing with.
Yeah.
And kind of convicted me I guess in a sense, covet another man's wife, not in a sexual way, but I was coveting her good health, you know. And I think God was admonishing me a little bit, you know, to stay in my lane and not compare or covet in any way. And you know, at one point we thought, you know, she developed this breathing issue with her lungs just not long after all the chemo, and we thought she was gonna. Well, they did a biopsy of her lungs, and they went in and looked at her lungs, and pulmonologist talked to me afterwards, and he said it does not look good.
Yeah.
And an anesthesiologist friend of us who had been in the room during the process also came to me and said, "Yeah, it doesn't look good, Fred." And so we went home that night and really expecting to hear the next day that, you know, the cancer had spread into her lungs. And but my anesthesiologist friend called us that morning and said, "No cancer." Wow. And we were like, oh, we felt like God had healed her. Because all during that night, we were making plans for, you know, how we were going to manage life as a single dad. And, you know, we were already, you know, in that mode. And we just felt like, you know, we just received this abundant blessing from the Lord. And then she started getting better after that. And most of, you know, in the last few years, she's really, she has a weakness of her heart, and it's kind of manifesting itself, you know, in a lot of ways. But most of our kids' childhood, up until their, you know, up through their 20s, really, they, you know, she's been a typical mom. You know, still a great mom. Yeah, and great mom, grandmom.
Yeah. Listening to you tell the story, the coveting story. There's a great friend that I have at work who he says this all the time. He says, you know, anytime you're feeling that way, he says, "Hey, I'd be glad." No, how does he say it? He says, "If we all lined up and put all of our problems in a pile, I'd be willing to bet that you'd pay anything to just be able to get you just your problems back."
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's kind of let's talk about infertility a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that we've had the opportunity. You know, Jimmy is going to come on the podcast in a few episodes as well. And you know, I know that there's an organization here in Tyler that we've had the opportunity to go to some fundraising events, and we've learned a lot about. But you know, talk to us about the infertility journey, and then you know, one thing specifically I'm really curious is you said earlier that there came a point where you decided that you were interested in adoption, you know, but Cynthia had been sold on it for a while. You know, Whitney and I talked about adoption for a while. We were able to have kids, but had several pretty difficult miscarriages as well, but ultimately ended up with two beautifully healthy children. But there was a period where we were talking about adoption as well, and I had a really hard time with it. I mean, I just couldn't get there in my head, and I dealt with a lot of, you know, just some shame and some guilt because I really felt like Whitney wanted it, and I was being extremely selfish, not wanting to entertain the conversation. Yeah. So, but yeah, just talk to us about that journey for you guys.
Yeah, this was 1980s.
Okay.
Mid 1980s, I guess. And we had done a lot of tests. You know, the fertility issues were really my issues, and gone through, you know, all the tests and some treatments and surgeries and different things to try and, you know, get things like they're supposed to be. And it's just nothing seemed to be working. And the next step would have been, travel to Houston or somewhere. And at that time, IVF was just probably in the experimental stage, if even that. Back then it was there just were not a lot of options, available. And so we said, okay, well, we'll just throw our life into our ministry, and that we were so involved. When we get involved in things, we get really involved. Like with the class that y'all were in. That was those folks become our family.
Yeah.
And so we were so involved with youth work. Kids at our house all the time, and just loving on them and encouraging them and helping them walk through difficult times, and that was very fulfilling ministry, and it was nice. We didn't have kids at that time because it gave us so much more mobility and flexibility.
Yeah.
To do that ministry, and but I remember one. This was a lot of those kids had gone off to college, and our life had slowed down quite a bit. And I was over at our friends Scott and Dee Pierce's house, and you're going to interview Scott tomorrow, I understand.
Yeah.
Some of our closest friends, and I was over there, and Cynthia wasn't for some reason. It was around Christmas time, and they were doing family Christmas stuff, and I was just kind of over there hanging out. We often did. We just often hung out at Scott and Dee's house. And I don't know, it just struck me as I was watching them do their family thing. I thought, man, I want this. And maybe adoptions would not be that bad a thing, and because at that time it's not that I ever thought adoption was bad, really. It's just that it just seemed so foreign, just unfamiliar. And, you heard horror stories about adoptions gone bad, and it's just a level of drama that I'd just prefer to stay away from. And but anyway, I feel like God stirred my heart a little bit that night, and I went home and told Cynthia, I said, maybe we should pursue adoption. And I'm sure inside she was going, praise the Lord,
Yeah.
And then we began working with the agency at Living Alternatives here in town. And Cynthia had already been a volunteer there doing crisis pregnancy counseling, testing and counseling. And so they knew her, and they put us in the system, and 9 months later, we had a baby.
Wow. So, today there's a lot of home studies and application processes and all of that. Was it similar back then?
It was. Maybe, it's the nature of life is that as time goes by, things always get more complicated and burdensome.
Yeah.
But we did, there was certainly a case study done, a home inspection. We had to make sure we had fire extinguishers everywhere and all the things that you're supposed to do. We probably should be doing anyway, but no, it forced us to do what we ought to be doing.
Right.
And but it was not burdensome at all. And we became very close to the Living Alternatives Ministry, and that's why I'm vice president of their board of directors now.
Yeah.
35 years later. I'm really, once you get connected with the Pates, you stay connected.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And it was it was a wonderful process, and how they cared for the birth mom.
Yeah.
And we were praying for the birth mom, and as she was kind of going through her journey, and we got to meet. We eventually got to meet both of our birth moms.
Yeah.
When our daughters turned 18, and they wanted to see the birth moms. The birth moms were willing, so we set up a time for them to come to Tyler, and they got to meet. And I would say that they haven't become super close, but they communicate, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And are very appreciative of each other.
Yeah.
I think the birth moms value how we've raised our daughters, and I think our daughters have great appreciation as we do for the birth moms and the decisions they made.
Yeah. You mentioned the care of the moms with living alternatives, and that's one of the things that always really, when we would go to the fundraisers, that really just blew me away, because a lot of adoption, the circumstance around it is can be incredibly traumatic, incredibly painful. It can be very early in life, or whatever the circumstance is, but most of the moms at that time are in a period of just significant instability, whether that's emotional or financial, just life in general. And one of the things that Living Alternatives does is they 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 care for the mom, uh, you know, as much so or more. I don't know if you would agree with that, but as much so or more until the baby's birth, and then there's support that exists after as well.
Yeah.
Um,
As long as they need it,
yeah,
and are willing to receive it. And it's not at all, I mean, people sometimes envision, adoption agencies as kind of like the baby mills or something.
yeah, yeah,
All they care about is the baby, and then
yeah. That's right.
sayonara. But
Yeah,
that is certainly not the case. I think with for most of them, it's a ministry.
yeah,
They want to minister to the whole person, and not just until the baby's born, but as long as ministry's needed. And that's why Living Alternatives, we have an aftercare program where a lot of moms decide not to place their child for adoption, and so we keep the mom and baby,
yeah,
and help them kind of get on their feet and learn how to provide and take care
yeah,
of your baby. And
yeah,
so I think the myth that's out there is that all we care is about stopping abortion, and we don't care about anything else. But
right. That's
it
right.
couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Um, well, hey, let's talk about granddaddy, being a granddad.
It's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'll just open it up there. Yeah, I don't know what's something that surprised you the most about being a granddad.
Wow. Just how much you love them. I guess I knew I would love them, but you don't really understand the depth of that love until you're actually there.
Yeah,
And we just, man, Cynthia and I both just adore our grandkids. And my Amazon bill has gone way up. And it was bad timing. And, this online purchasing coming just as we became grandparents,
yeah,
But yeah, so Cynthia's always asking me, "What do you think about these socks?" Or "How does this toboggan look?" Or
yeah,
"How about this jacket?" And I'm like, "They'll love it,
yeah,
sweetie.
yeah,
Whatever you get them, they'll love it." And yeah, Cynthia and I both just totally adore our grandkids and are so thrilled that they're all six here in Tyler,
mm,
because our one daughter lived in College Station. She's a PA.
yeah,
Our other daughter lived in Nashville, and her husband was from Nashville, and actually Smyrna, to be technically correct, is where they were living. And so we thought, well, we'll see them a few times a year in Tennessee, and a little more than that in College Station. And then our older daughter decided she wanted to come back to Tyler. That's
yeah,
where she grew up, and she loves it here. And
yeah,
so they moved back to Tyler. Then our younger daughter, Kelsey, she said, I want to come back to Tyler too,
yeah,
and be close to the family. And so her husband was willing. They moved back to Tyler. They both live within about a mile of each other, and about 4 or 5 miles from us. And so, yeah, it's great.
That's
It's
so
awesome.
cool. What do you feel like? What's the biggest difference between being a dad versus being a granddad?
You got to know, once again, you got to know your place. You got to know
Yeah,
your role. As you know, sometimes you think you know how kids ought to be raised, but you just got to let your kids raise them the way that they want to raise them.
Yeah.
And not that it's that much different, but sometimes you just want to intervene or step in, and you just have to say, no, that's not my role as a granddaddy. I'm just be there to love and encourage and spoil a little bit, and just let your parents be the parents. Now, my kids may say, he says that, but but he does step in sometimes,
Yeah.
So
that's actually one of the questions that I've gotten from a listener is, who's a dad, and he said, "Hey, we're kind of struggling with some boundaries with grandparents,
mm-hmm.
and they live in very close proximity, and it can seem like at times that their want to be the grandparent is sort of undermining the parenting strategy,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you think about that?
That could happen really easily. We don't just drop in a lot, on our kids. We mostly wait for invites.
Yeah.
But mostly they come over to our house,
Yeah.
because we've got, Disneyland's in our backyard.
Yeah.
We've got a swimming pool and court. I just keep buying toys that make them want to come over.
Yeah.
Bought a roller coaster, so now they want to come over and ride the roller coaster. Yeah. About to put in an artificial putting green, and so they can come over, and I want them to learn how to play golf. And so, so mostly they come to us.
Yeah.
But we sometimes will go over there if invited, or if we have a reason to drop in on them. But we try to let them kind of be their own family at their own houses.
Yeah.
And let them do their thing there.
That brings up something that maybe you can help me out with. Is one of the things that I really worry about, and I've talked about this before on here, is man, I want our kids to want to come home when they leave, and the age we are, and having kids and having a lot of friends that are our age and have kids, man, there's a lot of families out there that it's not fun going home.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chore. It's a burden. And what's the secret? How do you create an environment where your kids want to come home?
Oh, that is such a good question. Really, I mean, I'm trying. I think part of it is letting your kids have the freedom to be, who they want to be, and not kind of telling them how to live their lives, or not, trying to control them or push them a certain direction, but kind of let them decide what they want to be. And just not being a very judgmental kind of parent, where you remind them of bad decisions they made. Or,
yes.
You want your home to be a safe place for them. I kind of hate that term "safe place" now, because it's been, hijacked by certain elements. But you do want a safe space for your kids to come home again, and just kind of get away from, maybe the pressures of life or whatever.
Yeah.
You want it to be an oasis.
Yeah.
For your kids. And I think, Cynthia and I have done a pretty good job with that. And I think also the city we live in is such a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
And I think they really enjoyed getting back to a community that was, pretty close knit, and has good schools and good churches
Yeah.
and just really a good place to be. So I would like to think it was all us,
Yeah.
but I think also the part of it was just coming back to our city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned two things there. And my dad and I have talked about this quite a bit because my grandparents, his parents, who passed away several years ago, the family tried really hard for years to get together, and cousins and aunts and uncles tried to get together. But my grandparents were, almost like obsessive over that when the family's together, the family has to all be together, all doing the same thing. And it created this environment where, there wasn't a lot of independence when you were there. It was strange. And I guess where I'm going with that is I think one of my hopes is to create an environment where the girls can kind of come and go as they please. When you come here, I'm not going to hound you. Like, I'd love to have you stay as long as you want to stay. You can come and just sleep here,
Yeah.
because I know that you're going to want to come home and see your friends, and you're not going to want to hang out with me the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I think is really critical, as I've just kind of reflected and thought about how are we going to do that. And it's just kind of like, look, if we're just a hotel, that is totally okay. I'd love for you to just come and stay here, because we'll get to spend some time with you. But there's no expectation that when you come here that we're going to sit in the floor for 3 hours and play board games together. Yeah, I mean, if that happens, great. I would love that.
I'm grateful that my parents, I talked earlier about how tight a family we were.
Yeah.
And with aunts and uncles and cousins, and we were just, super tight. And when Cynthia came into the picture, and I started, seeing her, and then we got married, and we got involved in ministry. There were a lot of family activities that Cynthia and I were not taking part in. And I know that probably caused, particularly for my mom, probably caused some hurt, and disappointment. But she never communicated that to us. She gave us the freedom to kind of do our own thing, even within the same city. I think my sister may have communicated something to me about it at one point.
Yeah.
But they never said anything to us, and I think that really helped preserve a very close relationship.
Yeah.
Not having to deal with jealousy.
Yeah.
In our relationships with others.
Yeah. So. Something else that you mentioned that I think is a critical element of this is not chastising your kids. Like, I was either reading about this or listening to this, but that's one of the most inhospitable places to create as an empty nester is when your kids come home, you're constantly reminding them of the mistakes they've made, or you're constantly chastising them about, why did you buy a new car? You can't afford a new car. Why are you still working at that dumpy job? Why don't you do, that's not a very fun place to be.
No, that's not a place that you want to go hang out.
Right.
You'd rather go hang out with your friend and their parents who are just not that way.
Exactly.
You don't want to be the home that your kids avoid. You want to be the home where their friends come and hang out because they've got the cool parents.
That's right.
You want to be the cool parent.
Yeah. And I think that's what, later in life, I think that's what the cool parents ultimately are, is come as you are. Like, this is a safe place, but like you're welcomed here just the way you came. Like, there's no expectation.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's a more permissive home,
right.
or that those aren't the things that I think kids are really looking for. I think kids are looking for a home where they feel the love.
That's right.
And the acceptance and concern and care. And I'm sure I probably embarrassed my daughters at times because I would engage with their friends and talk to them about things. And but I think the friends kind of liked it.
Yeah.
especially the ones that maybe had troubles at home.
Yeah.
To have at least somebody's dad
Yeah.
interested in their life,
Hmm. Well, just to kind of keep with the theme of the podcast, one of the questions I've tried to ask everybody, and maybe for you, I'll ask this in two phases, which is, or you kind of guide the question. So, if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself, knowing what you know today, maybe I'll ask it this way: what times of your life maybe would you like to go back and have a conversation with yourself, and what would you want to say?
I have two wonderful daughters. They're both very talented. My oldest daughter is she's a physician assistant. She could have gone to med school if she wanted to. She's certainly smart enough and very determined. On the soccer field, she was very determined. On the basketball court, she was very determined. She's valedictorian of her class. I think she was second in her PA school class. We just found that out the other day. But man, when she was 5, 6, 7 years old, she was tough.
Yeah.
And sometimes hard on her sister. And I remember telling Cynthia, I'm afraid Leslie's going to wind up in prison.
Yeah.
So it's like she doesn't have a conscience,
Yeah.
She's just so strong-willed. And sometimes I think I was probably too strong on the discipline when she was young.
Mm.
I remember at one point, that's back when we still spanked in the day. And I remember I spanked her for probably being mean to her sister, which is, the most common offense. And then I spanked her, and by the book, by the textbook, after you spank a child, they're supposed to be broken and feel bad and apologize and whatever. And I spanked her, and I looked at her and said, "Leslie, what are you thinking right now?" And she looked at me in the eyes and said, "I'm thinking I want to hurt you." And that's like, whoa, that's creepy. So I don't think we're going to spank her again.
Yeah.
So that was the end of corporal punishment for her. And we moved on to making her write sentences. I will be nice to my sister, write it 10 times, then 50, then 100, then 1,000, because she wouldn't be contrite. She was so determined.
Yeah.
And I think I would tell myself, she's going to be okay. This is just how she's wired.
Yeah.
And you may just have to give her a little more grace. You still have to administer punishment. There still has to be correction.
Yeah.
But don't go crazy with it, and just realize that she's going to be okay. This is just how God made her. He made her strong.
Yeah.
And our younger daughter, she was, she just took it too much, and she didn't really fight for herself. And I think we should have encouraged her to be more like her older sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think later in life, I think that kind of came back to haunt her a little bit, not being a strong enough advocate for herself.
Yeah.
But they're both walking with the Lord now, so we are so grateful for that, and both doing extremely well. Man, we are blessed.
That's amazing. Well, is there, I know we debriefed a little bit before we started here, Fred, but is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't get to?
Man, I think I've covered my whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the life of Fred.
Yeah.
And it's been really great talking about it. And I tell you what, I just love your kids, Just love them, even if you have to be gone traveling. when you get home, like you said, decompress on the plane or listen to a podcast in the car.
Yeah.
But when you get home, be there for your kids and for your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I tell you what, this one thing we haven't talked about is the importance of the relationship between husband and wife.
Yeah.
And how that impresses, how that's important for the kids
Yeah.
to see mom and dad loving each other and valuing each other and encouraging each other.
Yeah.
The kids they're sponges. They're taking notes in their head. And if you want them to have good marriages, really focus on yours.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that a couple times, just about the, your kids are taking cues about what, and this probably extends more, certainly to marriage, but, your kids are paying attention to how you treat your wife, and wives, how you treat your husbands. And they're, our daughters certainly hear me tell Whitney, I love you a lot. We say that a lot in our house, but the downstream effect of that is, this is what love looks like. Dad says he loves me. Dad says he loves mom. How does dad treat mom?
Oh, yeah.
How does mom treat dad?
Yeah. Your actions have to match your words.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of brokenness with relationships stems from not having a good example of what unconditional or at the very minimum, just very, very intentional and committed love to your spouse looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And with girls, man, that scares me.
Yeah. Well, we're both experts on raising daughters, I guess.
Right. Well,
we're hoping to be.
Hoping to be. But just the making sure that your daughters understand that this is how you should be treated. Like, and that's a high bar. It's always kind of gut wrenching when I say that out loud, because it makes me immediately reflect on things that I'm not doing right. But I should be modeling to my daughters the type of love and respect and care, conversation, intentionality that they will one day, leave the house and get married and get from someone else. Yeah. It's funny, Fred. It's kind of like, I've thought about this. I haven't said this before, but this is going to sound super weird to say, but a very convicting thing to ask myself is, if my daughters married me, if there was a non-biological clone out there in the universe of all of my attributes and character and everything, would I be pleased with that?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you would say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they could do. I think they could do worse than marrying a clone of you.
Yeah.
No, I think. That's a kind of odd thought. I would have loved it if my daughters had married a clone of me. To be honest, I don't know if that's arrogance on my part.
Yeah.
But I guess I just, knowing how much I love my wife and I love my daughters, if they married a guy who loved them and loved their children as much as I do, I'd be pleased with that.
Yeah.
Because I know how I feel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they did.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think they did.
Good.
And my son-in-laws are good men. They're a little weird like I am.
Yeah.
And but weird is good.
That's the takeaway from today.
Yeah. Austin's not the only weird.
Yeah.
We can be weird too.
Yeah. That's right. All right. Well, as we wrap up, just a message to those listening. We've got some more great episodes with some other grandfathers coming up. And as always, the best way that you can support the channel is simply just share it with someone who you think would benefit from being a part of this community and being a part of this conversation. I had a very, very dear friend of mine reach out yesterday after spending some time on a tractor, is what he said. He was working on the tractor, and he had some time to listen to the podcast, and he hit me with a very convicting message, which was, "Hey, I love what you're doing, but what's the mission? What are you trying to accomplish here?" And in the moment, running up to this, I hadn't really taken the time to put pen to paper, but I'm working on it now. And the mission will continue to evolve, but I want to just throw it out there that as I'm kind of working through a formal mission for the show, as it stands right now, my goal is to create a community and a forum or an archive of husbands who get together and have real and genuine conversations about what went well and what didn't, what they're struggling with, what they did more of, what they would do less of, so that there's a resource for other dads out there to listen to at any stage of life. And that's kind of where it sits right now. That's way too long to be a mission statement, Fred, but that's what we're working on. And so more to come on the mission statement as we kind of get clarity to where this is going. But thank you guys so much for listening. Please, subscribe, follow, whatever the mechanism is on the channel or that you're listening, and share this with somebody. Fred, I really appreciate you taking time to come and talk to me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I hope somebody benefits from some of this.
Absolutely.
Somewhere.
Well, you mean the world to me. Like I said earlier, you and Cynthia and Scott and Dee have poured countless hours into couples just like me and Whitney. And I just wanted to say thank you for that dedication, and thank you for being here.
Well, you guys are an alpha couple. I appreciate y'all.
Absolutely.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.